The Miami Dolphins 2025 schedule is set, and we are breaking it all down here on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, and the author of Touchdown Miami on Substack. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Want to give a special nod to all of you who are tuning in. It's Wednesday night. The NFL schedule just dropped. The schedule kind of trickled out throughout the course of the morning. Lo and behold, the full thing ends up leaking by early afternoon, which is always great to get a chance to get a jump on the content, right? Make sure once it's formally announced, we're ready to go. So we're reacting to the Dolphins 2025 schedule. If you're watching on YouTube, I do have it in the ticker down below me. But if you are listening to the podcast as you normally would, it's all good. We're going to work our way through the schedule. We're going to react to the schedule with some early impressions. So let's just kind of take the walk. Let's go through weeks 1 through 18 for the Dolphins as things are scheduled, courtesy of the NFL schedule release. Week 1, the Dolphins are opening 2025 on the road in Indianapolis. I'm not mad about getting Tua Tagovailoa dressed for this game after he missed this game last year in a game that was one of the ones that got away from the Dolphins while Tua Tagovailoa had his IR stint. So 1 o'clock on Sunday, September 7th, Dolphins at Colts to open the season. Home opener is week 2. Sunday, September 14th versus the New England Patriots. This is the lone September 1 o'clock kick. Good. We're going to bake somebody out there in the sun. Might as well be the Patriots. Week 3, another divisional opponent 5 days later. That's not a math error. The Dolphins are on Thursday Night Football in week 3 against the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park against Buffalo. So Thursday, September 18th, Amazon Prime, week 3, Dolphins at Bills. Tua, slide, brother. Week 4, another primetime matchup. Monday, September 29th versus the New York Jets on ESPN/ABC. Week 5 at Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. kick on the road. Week 6, the West Coast Chargers coming to the East Coast to play at 1 p.m. This Dolphins' second 1 p.m. home kick of the season is in Week 6, October 12th against the Chargers. Week 7, Sunday, October 19th, at Cleveland Browns. Week 8, Sunday, October 26th, at Atlanta Falcons. Week 9, home on a short week. Thursday Night Football, hosting the Baltimore Ravens. 2 Thursday night games in the first 9 weeks for the Dolphins this season. But the other side of that coin is coming out of that, you get a little bit of extra rest, and you're at home to prep for the Buffalo Bills, who come to town and play at 1 o'clock on Sunday, November 9th. You're done with the Bills by Sunday, November 9th. Week 10, Week 11, of course, is the overseas game. We're going to Madrid, Spain, playing 9:30 a.m. on NFL Network against the Washington Commanders, coming home from that trip with a bye on Week 12. Week 13, Sunday, November 30th, home against the New Orleans Saints. Week 14, in New York against the Jets, or I guess New Jersey against the New York Jets, 1 o'clock kick. Couple of primetime games here late in the season. Monday, December 15th, at Pittsburgh Steelers, Monday Night Football. Week 16, Sunday, December 21st, home against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday Night Football. Week 17, home, 1 o'clock kick against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 18, to be determined at New England Patriots. So that's the Dolphins' schedule for 2025. And the Dolphins end up collecting 5 primetime games plus the standalone game playing in Madrid, Spain. So it's the Thursday night football games against Buffalo in Buffalo week 3, home Thursday night against Baltimore week 9, Sunday night football Cincinnati week 16, at Pittsburgh Monday night football week 15, and week 4 home against the Jets. So the Dolphins, we haven't really gone too far into this on the program, but they are doing alternative uniforms this season, that the AFC East is amongst those divisions that will be getting a city-inspired, community-inspired alternative uniform and then rotate them every 3 years. The Dolphins will be a part of that. This is the first year of that experience with the league. I would assume the primetime game against the Jets, Monday Night Football, is a great opportunity for the Dolphins to showcase whatever new uniforms they have, because it's a home divisional game. You are wearing the city-inspired uniform. So it's either week 4, Monday Night Football against the Jets. It's either that, week 2 against New England for a 1 o'clock kick, or week 10, November 9th, 1 o'clock kick against Buffalo. So Dolphins are going to have those 3 divisional home games taken care of in the first 10 weeks of the season. I would guess the primetime game would be the one everybody would be excited about the Dolphins, whether it's a Miami Vice uniform or an orange uniform or whatever direction they ultimately choose to go. Just looking at those 3 divisional home games, you got one in primetime. That feels like low-hanging fruit for the NFL to have their teams showcase some of these spotlight opportunities. Now, the other talking point that exists is cold weather games, because the Dolphins, of course, they historically have not traveled particularly well in cold weather and are a warm weather football team. So it is interesting to see, they finish week 18 at New England. Has the chance to be a very cold football game. Pittsburgh, December 15th and December 7th at the New York Jets. That gives you probably, that's your cap, I would assume. So all things considered, you've got one divisional contest for sure. That's going to be a cold weather game. I would expect you'll get some balmy mid-40s. You might get colder for that early December game against the Jets. But I don't look at this and say, holy smokes, we got these pivotal games. And it's to be determined what the New England Patriots end up being this year. I think they're a really fascinating team with Mike Vrabel coming in, and they obviously have the energy and enthusiasm around Drake May at the quarterback position. They're a really compelling team. And I don't think that that's a team that you could sit here and write off, and certainly not with kind of the shaky expectations that there are around the Dolphins right now. But I will say this. I think the league kind of tells you what they think about the Miami Dolphins by putting this team in 5 primetime games, plus a standalone international showcase. That's a lot of exposure for the Dolphins. A lot of exposure for the Dolphins. We're going to get a little bit further into kind of some of the breaks around this schedule, things I'm excited to see, things I'm a little bummed to see. We're going to get into that next here on Locked on Dolphins, so make sure you guys stick with us. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on all of the action than right now. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live during the game. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have even more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same-game parlay? And you could certainly put $200 in bonus bets to good use if you hit your first $5 bet over at FanDuel. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you will get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. Things I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see the Dolphins from a scheduling perspective get a little extra rest ahead of some of these divisional matchups. You have obviously it cuts both ways with that week 3 showcase against Buffalo. Being completely honest, I've got no reason to pick the Dolphins to win in Buffalo because they haven't done that in a really long time. So you could either say, well, you can take the standard week-long rest and then lose in Buffalo, hypothetically. Or you could take the short week, naturally have a little bit less leverage at your advantage, but then get ready to play the Jets with an extra 4 days of preparation, to which I would say, that's fine by me. I'm certainly not mad about getting an extra half a week to prepare for the Jets early in the season. And then by extension, probably, I think comfortably, the most difficult 3-week stretch that this Dolphins schedule has to offer you is weeks 9, 10, and 11. You've got an international travel in there. You've got Buffalo as a divisional matchup in there. And you got a short week against Baltimore in there as well. But it's short week at home playing Baltimore. Okay. Baltimore's going to be a really good football team this year. That's going to be a very difficult matchup to win, especially with how Lamar seems to every other time he plays the Dolphins, he just absolutely dissects them, right? But hey, the last time in 2023 was a dissection performance, so maybe this one won't be a dissection performance. But of that most difficult stretch of games, technically all 3 are air quotes home games, right? But short week at home, significant rest advantage for that individual matchup. And then you get extra week or extra rest going into the week 10 game against Buffalo because you played the first game short week at home. And then Washington, in a perfect world, you're playing this one at Hard Rock Stadium. That's neither here nor there. That's no shade to the international fans in Spain. But if you feel as though the Commanders are a better football team, and that's to be determined, right? Every year's a new year, and the predictability of it's there's a lot of variance, and Washington, almost half of their schedule is primetime games this year. So how does that team respond to that? But if you feel like Washington's a better team, one of the great equalizers that exists is the variance that's introduced with international travel. So you could look at each one of those 3 games, Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington in a row, and then you get the bye after it to say, yeah, that's a murderer's row, in which case, it is. I mean, that's 3 divisional opponents, divisional round plus opponents from last year's playoffs, right? It's good, really good football teams. But the peripheral elements of all of those matchups favor Miami. I kind of like getting Cincinnati late in the year as well. I think they're a team that, as I've kind of familiarized myself with that football team, they obviously have a slew of matchup problems in the passing game. Mike Gesicki revenge game incoming. But they're a team that I think has the potential to really kind of have their hands full towards the end of the year with some of the missing depth that I think that roster has. And that's not to say that Miami has great depth up and down the depth chart, and the cornerback versus wide receiver matchup is going to be dramatically in Cincinnati's favor when Cincinnati has the football, right? But I don't know that that's a team that's particularly well built for attrition. Unless they have a lot of young guys that make a leap this year. And maybe they do, and maybe that I'll come back to Rue saying this out loud, but that's a team that I look at and say you could either play them early in the year when they're fresh and everybody's firing on all cylinders, or you could maybe play them later in the year in which the attrition of the roster hits, and nobody's felt that in recent years more than the Dolphins, right? So we've lived that and experienced that, and we know what that's like going into a late season game that's a high stakes matchup and you're not firing on all cylinders and you don't have all hands on deck, and it really kind of limits what you do. And Cincinnati, I think, could be a roster that is a little bit susceptible to that. I don't mind the start of this block with at Indy. If you're going to start on the road, a non-familiar opponent, certainly not mad about that. That was a matchup I think the Dolphins had a really good chance to win last year, if not for obviously there was some ball security issues. You went through QBs 3 and 4 in that game as Tim Boyle made his appearance there and put that ball out of bounds in the final couple minutes. And Jacoby Brissett, Tyler Huntley hits his head off the turf and has to leave the game. So just another one of those Murphy's Law contests for the Dolphins last year that if you catch that team early, especially with their quarterback situation, where you have either Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, and I think you could throw some new things at them scheme-wise that maybe they wouldn't be well equipped and prepared for. I think maybe some of that can help offset the fact that you're playing that game on the road. So those are some things I like surface level about the Dolphins schedule as I kind of look at it and process it in real time. We're going to get some things I don't like out of the way next here on Locked on Dolphins. So make sure you guys stick with us. Things I don't like. Man, I really don't like the prospect of a primetime game in Pittsburgh. Now, I will say this about the Steelers, though. As you reflect on what Pittsburgh has been the last couple of years, they have been a team that has been prone to some fading down the stretch. They lost their last 4 games this season, and they lost 5 of their last 7 games after starting. They started 8-2, and then proceed to finish 2-5. Pittsburgh did last year. The year before that, in 2023, they got a little hot, but nevertheless, I mean, they finished 10-7, but they lost 4 out of 5 games in November and December before winning Cincinnati without Joe Burrow, Baltimore with them sitting their starters after clinching the 1, and beating Seattle. In 2022, Pittsburgh finished 9-8, and that was the last time they got hot. But they beat teams like Carolina, the Raiders, the Ravens. They beat them 16-13. They beat the Raiders 13-10. They beat the Panthers 24-16. They beat the Browns in that stretch. And then you're back to 2021, in which they went 9-7-1. And they were shaky this year as well, where they started 5-3 and finished 4-1, and the tie was in there, and they lose 4 out of 6 in that stretch as well. So they have been a team that historically has started hotter, but primetime showcase against a team like Pittsburgh, that's going to be a big time litmus test for what I think this team aspires to be when you consider that's a hard-nosed football team. AFC North footballs, when you're playing it at a high level, is just a little bit of a different brand of football, right? I mean, there's a physicality component that division has become notorious for. And you're going to get that and Cincinnati in back-to-back weeks. And then in week 17, you're going to have Tampa Bay. And I look at Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, that block of 3, in addition to the block of 3 that's Baltimore, Buffalo, and Washington, I think those are some pretty stiff tests. And I think those 2 blocks of 3 games are going to determine what kind of season the Dolphins have this year. If the Dolphins can find a way to go 3-3 out of that block of football games, I feel pretty good about the odds of them having a season that we're going to get to the end of the rainbow and sit and look back on and say, yeah, they did some nice things this year. And I'm not going to make any bold schedule or like win-loss predictions or anything like that right now. But Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tampa, and you get 2 of them at home, which is nice. And I like that the primetime game with Cincinnati is Sunday night, so you're not going into the Tampa Bay game with a deficiency, but you're going into the Cincinnati game with presumably a rest advantage because you're playing on Monday night the previous week in Pittsburgh. So the trickle-down effect throughout those 3 games is you'll feel it. And Tampa's a team that has a lot of physicality. They have a lot of weapons. They're another team that I don't really like your matchups on, covering their wide receivers as things currently stand, I should say. And they're going to have a physical offensive line. So I think they have a chance to really be a stiff test for you in the trenches on both sides of the football late in the year. So the Dolphins need to have better health up front than they've had in each of the last 2 seasons. And if they don't, those could be some long 60-minute contests. That is going to do it for us here today on the show. That is your initial knee-jerk reaction to the 2025 Miami Dolphins schedule. I'll read through them one more time. Week 1 at Indy. Week 2, home versus Pats. Week 3 at Buffalo Thursday night. Week 4, Monday night, home versus Jets. Week 5 at Carolina. Week 6, home versus Chargers. Week 7 at Cleveland. Week 8 at Atlanta. Week 9, home versus Baltimore Thursday night. Week 10, home versus Buffalo. Week 11 in Madrid versus Washington. Week 12, bye. Week 13, home versus New Orleans. Week 14, at New York Jets. Week 15, at Pittsburgh Steelers. Monday Night Football. Week 16, Sunday Night Football, Cincinnati Bengals. Week 17, home versus Tampa Bay Bucks. Week 18, day or time to be determined, at New England Patriots. How many games do you think the Dolphins are going to win? Would love to hear from each and every one of you. Leave a comment. Let me know. Reach out on social media if you're a podcast listener, and let me know how many games you think the Dolphins are winning this year. Eager to hear what you guys have to say, but that's my 2 cents on it. It's going to do it for us here today. Locked on Dolphins. Go Fins. Talk to you all again soon.